Last year, Michigan State's marquee moment of the season was upsetting the Iowa Hawkeyes. Will it happen again in 2025?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Spartan friends, Spartan family, and Iowa Hawkeye Nation, how on earth are we all doing on a crossover episode of Locked On Spartans and Locked On Hawkeyes? Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below your very, very, very early thoughts on this end of the season game between the Spartans and the Hawkeyes because, guys, this is what we've been doing over at Locked On Spartans. We've been going week by week down Michigan State's schedule, getting a way too early look at the other team, what the stakes for this game will be, all this and that. It's been a great time, but here we are at the penultimate game of the season. Spartans, Hawkeyes in a very friendly place to play. Kinnick Stadium in November. Woohoo! Nothing bad ever happens there for the opponents. But Trent, let's just set the table right now because I've been asked this question. I've been thinking about it last year, and not to my own horn or rub it in the Hawkeyes' faces, but this was one of the early before the season predictions I had, is that Michigan State would upset the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, look, were we right? Yeah, that was fun. It was great. Now, I'll pump the brakes here because one of our teams went on to win one more game the rest of the season, and the other one went on to lose just one more regular season game. So we all know who got the last laugh after that. But for this season, Trent, I'm sorry to beat a dead horse. I'm sorry if it seems like I'm picking on Iowa fans, but I think I'm leaning maybe Iowa again could be the upset. Maybe it's because you guys go to USC the week prior. Maybe it's because there's Nebraska the week after. It's that letdown spot, look-ahead spot for you guys. And also it's going to be one of these classic first team to 20 games potentially. It's a little weird last year. It actually was a barn burner last year. But Trent, even though that this spread might be 10, 12 points, that's what S&P Plus says right now, do you think that there's any shot at a Michigan State upset when we visit your guys in Iowa City?
Well, I'll never say no shot. I mean, I can't be there. I'm not that hot takey that there's no shot. There's always a shot. I mean, you roll the football out there, you roll the basketball, there's always a shot. But take a look at Kirk Ferentz on senior day. I don't know actually the record off the top of my head, but as you were talking, I was just trying to think the last time they lost a senior day. It doesn't happen very often. You mentioned the November record. Absolutely spectacular throughout the years. And one of the trip-ups last year was a road trip out to UCLA. They're going to go out to USC the week before, and they're going to get beat. I was going to get beat that game. And do I anticipate Iowa dropping back-to-back games then on senior day against Michigan State after the disaster that happened a year ago in East Lansing? I don't. I really don't. You talk about those numbers, I might even be willing to lay it. We'll see if this Iowa offense does look different this year. The other thing that's so crazy going back, and as I'm sure you do during the offseason, you go back and rewatch games. And going back and watching the game out at East Lansing a year ago, it was just so un-Iowa-like. That was not Iowa football that we've grown accustomed the last 27 years. And because of that, it was just such a weird game. It's hard for me to take what we saw a year ago and then take it a step further because Michigan State looked as good as they did a year ago, and Iowa looked as bad as they could a year ago in that football game. And this is a different season for Iowa, but is there a chance? Absolutely. There's always a chance, but I think there are going to be a lot of factors when we get to that point in November that's going to point Iowa's way.
And this is the fun part of doing these way too early look-aheads. Like for the start of the season, like our beginning games, it's easy to, take a guess at what each team will look like. Who knows with the injuries, the attrition, everything that goes on, what this game will look like here. But just on the schedule alone, I think it's an interesting spot after USC, Nebraska. And Michigan State's end, it's not like, we're just playing the Girl Scout troop number 4920 beforehand. We're playing Penn State the week prior. That's going to be a tough one. And then, the game after, it's at Ford Field against Maryland. I can't imagine anyone's going to be looking ahead too hard to that game. But it's going to be an intriguing game here. And this could be a game where Michigan State kind of maybe sort of has to steal a game, so to speak, because, look, we're going to be favored in 5 of these games, most likely. It's our first 3. It's Western, it's Boston College, it's Youngstown State. Probably be favored by 3 points against UCLA, favored for that Maryland game. You got to steal another one if you want bowl eligibility. Could it be Iowa? Could it be Minnesota? Could it be Nebraska or USC? All those are on the road. Or do you actually, make a defiant statement at home against Michigan, against Penn State? I don't know where it is, but it has to happen somewhere to finally get back to a bowl game in what would be like a full presidential term if they don't do it this year. So that's what's at the line for us right now, Trent. what would be at stake for this game? Your 11th game of the season. What are the goals for you guys? Like what would this do for either a win or a loss for you guys?
So if you remember a year ago, there were some pretty big expectations, at least for Iowa standards going into the year, that the schedule broke very favorably for them. There was a possibility outside of the road trip to Columbus that this team was going to be able to make a deep run. They returned 10 starters on the defensive side of the football. There was a lot pointing there. Well, we saw once again, Cade McNamara turned into a pumpkin. Though the running game and the offense took a huge step forward, it was just because of that. It was the running game and Tim Lester, what he was able to do. Now the hope is this year you take another step. You go from averaging 2 years ago 15 points a game. Last year they averaged 27 points per game, and they did it with an absolute train wreck at the quarterback position. You bring in Mark Gronowski, over 10,000 career yards, over 120 career touchdowns, another 39 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, this guy was electric. He won the Walter Payton Award, which is the Heisman Trophy of the SCS level. Miami wanted him. Their consolation prize was Carson Beck. They wanted Mark Gronowski. He didn't want to go to Miami. He ends up in Iowa. And if he didn't have the shoulder injury, he would have been drafted in the NFL. Iowa, for the first time, at minimum, since Nate Stanley, and your thoughts on Nate Stanley, could go back even further, maybe to C.J. Beathard, finally has somebody competent. Not great, at minimum, competent at the quarterback position, and the upside can go even higher. This is as deep of a wide receiver room as they have had in 7 years. None of them are outstanding, but they actually have depth. There were many times where they were playing walk-ons as their number 2, 3, and 4 wide receivers in real games. That happened over the last 4 years. That's what Iowa's been dealing with. Now they go realistically 7 deep, coupled with an offensive line that returns a ton of production, All-American candidate at center, All-American candidate at right tackle with Logan Jones and Jennings Dunker. You go on and on and on, coupled with, you think a bounce back year. The expectations aren't nearly as high as they were a year ago, but you can paint that picture that by the time we get to that 11th game of the season, Iowa has a whole lot to play for, more than just bowl eligible, more than just, hey, can we be on the fringes of a top 25 with a break here and there, a Kinnick upset here and there. This team with Penn State and Oregon coming in, if they are 8-2 going into those final couple of games, it would not be a shock, but that means a lot of pressure on the Hawkeyes if they can get to that point.
Because, that's what I was going to bring up, is that, like, it might be a little too much to, just predict or expect college football playoff. But so is the goal of the season just to be, like, tuning into the college football playoff ranking shows in November, hoping to see your logo? Like, is that fair?
That's a realistic one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something that's attainable, right? And that's what I'm not a grandiose kind of person that, look, I was not winning a national championship in football in my lifetime. I know it. In the current iteration of the college, it was more likely before than it is today. With this new playoff of 12 teams and going to 16 teams, the likelihood is out the window. I mean, how many times going forward are we going to see either of our teams playing a Big Ten championship game? Is it once a decade? Once every 2 decades? Like, what's a realistic scenario, for both of our programs and your program that's even done more than mine here recently, at least as it pertains to the playoffs. So when it comes to reality, I think that's a realistic goal, is kind of having it there. I did have one thing, flipping it back your way, is there was just some rumblings from one of our staff writers that works for one of the big conglomerations, and said he was talking to his Michigan State guy, and there was at least some rumblings that maybe year number 2 is not, it hasn't even started. I get it. But there's some concerns out there. Maybe would that be a fair way to look at it, that year number 2, yes, there's optimism, but there's maybe a little undercurrent of concern?
It's interesting because as we're recording this is the first day of fall camp. So you're getting all these quotes out. Hey, you know what? Things are much more comfortable in year 2. It was a complex defense last year. Took us some, learning curve to get used to it. In year 2, we're hitting the ground running, everything like that. So it's that, also establishing the culture here at Michigan State, which it sounds corny, it sounds cliche, but you do need a healthy culture in your locker room. So everything's looking on the up and up for that right now. The 2 concerns, I don't know specifically what they're talking about, but I can imagine that maybe one of them is looking at Michigan State's schedule this year, which all offseason we've been saying, hey, this looks a lot better than last year. And then you squint, and then you really look at the schedule again. It's like, oh, man, but that still sucks. That's still one of the 20 toughest schedules that we're going to have in the nation here. So that's going to be really hard to get to 6 wins just with this schedule that Michigan State has. And then another 2 zoomed out just from this upcoming season is that recruiting. Yes, we went on a little bit of a hot streak in June. We got a lot of commits, but it still isn't going to land in the top 30 most likely. So that could be another concern too. But as far as on the field, will it look better? Can you actually score more than 20 points per game for the first time in 3 years? I think there's a lot of optimism in that, at least. A lot of question marks on defense. You put that in a cocktail shaker and you mix it up, and who knows what's going to come out of the other side. But it is mixed opinions right now. But, hey, right now, 0-0, still undefeated. Fall camp just started. The team's healthy. The vibes are high for the most part right now, which we will take. So I do want to get more into your team, just getting into the weeds, what you guys did this offseason. But first, need to talk everyone's ears off about DripDrop. That's right, guys. I absolutely love this. I opened up the bag the other day when it got on my doorstep on Sunday. This was after a 3-hour road trip. This was after celebrating my mother's 60th birthday on the west side of the state. And in customary tradition, every Sheehan birthday is celebrated with 14,000 IPAs. So, yeah, I needed some hydration back in my life. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, lawn days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-school classes, guys, hydration is where it all starts, and that is where DripDrop comes in. When I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, my skin, but getting enough fluids every day, it isn't always easy, and that's why I've been loving DripDrop this entire week. Actually, just had their citrus zero sugar flavor about 20 minutes before recording. That's why I'm just rocking and rolling right now, guys. And I'm no stranger to like hydration packets. We've been, using some of the competitors recently. Some of them, they're okay. It tastes like you're drinking the ocean. DripDrop actually tastes fantastic. Again, you can get the zero sugar ones too if you're worried about the sweetness. I absolutely love DripDrop. Right now, DripDrop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your order. Just head to DripDrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. All right, Trent. So another thing I've been doing is just, surfing through what other teams have been doing in this offseason. And that obviously goes hand in hand with what you did or didn't do in the portal. So I go over, I check out what Iowa did. You guys added 9 players in the portal. 24/7 Sports gives you guys the 17th ranked portal class amongst the 18 Big Ten teams. 2 schools of thought here. Did you guys just fall flat on your face this offseason? Or is it quite simply, we just didn't need that much. You really needed these players. So which one was it for this?
This is the Kirk Ferentz philosophy, is you're filling in gaps. You're not going out and it's not a haul. It's not going out and remaking your team. You're filling in the gaps. And when you look at that and what they did, I think they did an incredibly good job. We already talked about Mark Gronowski. I do believe he is going to be a household name this college football season. I believe in him. I believe in the upside and the translation that he's going to make up to the Big Ten level. But then you kind of look at the other ones, and they're not huge names by any means. You start at left tackle, and Bryce George is going to be in competition for that stock. Comes up from the upper Midwest there up at Ferris State, highly successful. The question is, he played a lot of right tackle. Can he play left tackle? Iowa set at right tackle with All-American Jennings Dunker. They need a left tackle. They got a couple of young guys that are battling there, but it is filling in a gap. At minimum, he's going to be a backup piece, and you hope he can win that starting job at left tackle. You go to the defensive side of the football. They got 2 guys you really like at defensive tackle, but you didn't have depth. They bring in 2 depth pieces. One from Central Michigan, going to be a rotational piece at minimum. He's a super senior, that kind of guy. The other one, it's another South Dakota State guy, by the way, in Hawthorne. This guy, they wanted to offer him a couple of the guys on the coaching staff out of high school. He's not tall. Well, Iowa never cares about that. If you can be leverage, he is going to be a stud for the next 3 years. He's got 3 years of eligibility. They thought, I think, in the beginning, he was going to be a developmental piece. Kirk Ferentz told me last week in Vegas, he is going to play, and he's going to play a lot for us this year. When Kirk Ferentz says that, that's eye-opening. They struggled last year in the defensive backfield, as you guys saw in that one. They go to South Dakota, not State, South Dakota, the Coyotes. They get a cornerback who played in the exact same defensive system. So he didn't go through spring football. They got him in May. He's going to go through, but he played in this system before. That's what Iowa does. It's filling in those gaps, and that's what they did. Outside of Gronowski, they're not headliners. It just makes sense. And Kirk Ferentz has said, with NIL, he wants to pay the guys that have been here, that put in that sweat equity. That's how he's going to build this program. That's how it's gone these 3 years. And all 9 of those guys all make sense, and I think at minimum are going to fill in some of those holes.
Iowa fans are going to love this comparison, but it just sounds like the football version of Tom Izzo, really, and how it pertains to the portal. Taking care of guys in-house. We're just going to fill in holes here. Yes, I will use the transfer portal. Not my favorite thing in the world, but hey, these are the times that we live in, so let's just use it to our advantage, at least a little bit. A little bit. So is it factual that Iowa, like their offensive line is the strongest unit on the whole field on either side of the ball? Is this just traditional? We're going all the way back to what we've only just grown up to know, is that Iowa's going to have a great offensive line? Or is there another position on the field that we should have our eye on?
That's interesting. And when I kind of go through and look at just one position group that would be the strength of this team, yeah, I think it would be the offensive line. Now, you go to the most important position of it, left tackle, and you have to figure out that left tackle portion of it. But you go through and you talk about the other four positions. Right tackle, Jennings Dunker, All-American a year ago. He's back for another year. The right guard right next to him, Cade Pieper. He was their sixth offensive lineman a year ago, was in a bunch of packages when they went with an extra lineman. He's going to be back and now in a starting role for the first time. They love him. Logan Jones, another All-American at the center position. Then you go to the left side, and at the left guard position, you got Bo Stevens, who's, I believe, started, 16, 17 games in his career. So he's got a ton of experience. It's just figuring out left tackle. And if they do, and at minimum, and if they're okay at that position, you're so good at different spots on the offensive line. And what we saw, that emergence in the ground game a year ago, they're incredibly deep at the running back spot. So I think that'd be fair. You lose Caleb Johnson from last year's team, and you saw with the big run what he did, and that guy was super special. Kamari Moulton, though, was the starter a year ago before Caleb Johnson emerged. He was a guy that they've been high on now the last 3 years. They're deep, 5, 6, 7 guys deep at the running back spot. So maybe you put those two together. Just talk about the ground game. Oh, and now, by the way, you go from the corpse of Cade McNamara trying to run the football, which he couldn't do. He couldn't even quarterback sneak. Now you got Mark Gronowski, who has 40 career touchdowns on the ground. You just throw it all together with the ground game, and I think you kind of put that all together as the strength of the Hawkeyes. What about you, Matt? If you go the other way, what would be your strength when we're saying Sparty is going to be really good at this year?
It's going to be wide receiver, and in order for that to work, a lot of other things have to really work, Trent, as we all know, and one of them is, of course, the offensive line and then the quarterback. Okay, but let's just focus on the wide receiver right now, because the biggest get for Michigan State this offseason was actually someone that was already on the roster. It was true freshman Nick Marsh, who had a really great game against Iowa last year. I believe it was 113 receiving yards, but he, just absolutely displayed what he can do, even as just a raw true freshman last year. You keep him from going into the transfer portal, seeking, greener pastures, a bigger bag, what have you. You also bring in Omari Kelly. Been hearing a lot of great things about him this offseason. He was an all-conference USA guy down at Middle Tennessee State, so he's going to be productive. You add Christian McCray, who offers speed. There's a guy named Rod Bullard, which, of course, everyone knows where he came from. Valdosta State. We've all watched Valdosta last year, but he's another speed demon, too. They needed to add a lot of speed at receiver, and they did, to pair it up right next to Nick Marsh. So I think that's going to be the strength. Now, if I can keep rambling, that's going to be completely irrelevant if Aiden Childs is going to be getting mauled every other drop back like he was last season. But there's reason to believe that the offensive line can be a little better this year. Your left tackle last year was a redshirt freshman. He comes back, former 4-star. I feel really good about that. You went and got Connor Moore, FCS All-American from Montana State, for your right tackle. Okay, good start. Matt Golban, one of the best interior offensive linemen you could have gotten out of the portal. He's going to be your center. And then your other two guards, hey, you know what? Former starters went down very early in the season last year due to season-ending injuries. I'm not going to say that they for sure will be better on offensive line because, God, Trent, it's been a decade since we've really had a strong offensive line here, but there is reason to believe, all added up with this second year of Jim Maholchek, our offensive line coach, being able to just groom these guys into being a strong unit, why this could actually all work on offense. I'm not saying we're going to drop 49 points per game. I'm just saying that we might be getting in the mid to high 20s per game. Who's to say?
It's fun. We did it last year. It's fun. It's fun.
Oh, my God. I forgot what that feels like. But, yeah, I'm going to have to go with the wide receiver group, but it's only going to work if other guys on offense do their job here. So that's my long answer to a short question. I hope it works, Trent. I can't do this for a third year of just not having a good offense. Are you guys going to be good on defense? You guys are never good on defense, right? But on a real note, is Phil Parker back for his 40th year? I mean, is there any concern whatsoever with that side of the ball ever in Iowa City?
Well, they took a step back. I mentioned they returned a ton of starters last year. They took a step back. Now, the funny thing is, they took a huge step back for them. I think they're still 18th in the country in total defense.
Great.
It's still pretty much in every single metric you look at a top 20.
Right.
But when you're talking about the elite level that they were at, It does feel like. You guys saw it in that game. That was terrible performance. When they went out on the short week to UCLA, they played terrible defensively that night, and we just hadn't seen that so often over the last 3-4 years. It was such a rarity to even see a couple of bad drives as when you saw a whole game of them playing poorly. It was eye-opening. Mentioned plugging up that defensive tackle position. They're excited about that, getting the quarterback a little bit more, but they do lose All-American Jay Higgins, a middle linebacker, who was an absolute stud the last 2 years, and also Nick Jackson, his running mate, who leaves as the all-time leading tackler in college football. Those are the two guys you're losing at linebacker, and they can go one of two ways. They got a bunch of veterans that hung around, guys that certainly could have taken starting jobs at other places, moved to the MAC, gone down, played at the FCS level, and almost every one of them would have been a starter. But then you also have this group of redshirt freshmen, 3 of them that came in a year ago. Preston Reese, he has already broken a bunch of the weightlifting records as a 19-year-old, as a linebacker. You have 2 other guys that they're really excited about. So it's going to start with the veterans, but if the veterans don't have it, don't be surprised if you see a lot of young linebackers out there for Iowa, something that they've done in the past and it has not gone very well. That's the biggest concern overall with them, is that linebacker spot and what it's going to look like. And I've seen it before. Good defenses. Iowa's good both on the front side and the back side, but your linebackers can't make play in the way that Iowa plays defensively. Defensive tackle, you're occupying space. Linebacker, go make plays. Linebackers aren't making plays. All of a sudden, those 3-yard runs are turning into 7-8-yard runs, and it gets ugly in a hurry.
You know what? Last question I just have about this game here, and this is going to bring perhaps a tear to my eye right now, actually, because they do have the conference opponents for 2026, 2027. I don't see Iowa for us for either. Is this the last time Kirk Ferentz goes against Michigan State, you think? Or, to make the other comparison, is this another Tom Izzo thing where, like, he's going to coach until he's 135 years old, and, like, we'll see in 2028, Trent.
So Friday, August 1st, he turns 70 years old. And talking to him in Big Ten Media Days, he's the same guy. He told us he's got a couple of new hips. Didn't even know about that. He's in such great shape. He's still incredibly sharp. You're not seeing he has evolved with college football. And in many parts, he's been ahead of a lot of the people 20, 30 years younger than him in a lot of different avenues. I would say, yes, this would be it, but I'm not going to be surprised. I mean, if FanDuel made me put odds on it, we went to the Kinnick Casino. I would say that that Michigan State and Iowa will face off with Kirk on the sideline is the betting favorite. However, he's up 27 years. Nobody's going to do this again. It's not going to happen in this landscape. I would never bet against Kirk. And if he's here until he's 75, 77, 80 years old, I'm not going to be shocked just because he has figured out a way to build a program that they're always at minimum going to be confident.
So, let's just keep the prop bet casino open right now. 2028, the next time our 2 teams meet, it will be in East Lansing. Who has a better shot of being on their respective sidelines? Is it Kirk Ferentz or is it Jonathan Smith? For, a litany of reasons. It's not like Kirk's going to get fired. It would obviously be him stepping away from the game. But for Smith, it could get interesting, like if this doesn't get off the ground by 2027, or let's say it does. And then, oh my God, the UCLA job is opened up and he wants to return back home, stay in the Big Ten. There's a lot more like reasons Jonathan Smith could not be here in 2028. Yeah. Although some part of me says both will be, that might be a little naive to think. So if you had to pick one, Trent, like who's going to be on that sideline at Spartan Stadium in 2028? I know.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, when you think of it that way, we're really getting into some interesting props here at FanDuel.
You like this?
We're making some calls over there. I would put the betting favorite at Smith, but it's not significant, right? I mean, it's crazy that maybe he's minus 130 and got plus 110 on Ferentz, and I guess the tie would be something different. But if it was an either-or situation, which is wild to think that is where we are. I want to ask you this, Matt, because I asked you, some rumblings. We know things turn quickly in college football. If Michigan State goes 4-8 again, are they in a spot where they would make a move that quickly, or at minimum, are they, hey, we got to give this guy 3 years?
That is a really good question. I think it is incredibly relevant to mention that a new athletic director just came into Michigan State too, in Jay Pat. So when that happened, I had an episode like, could Jonathan Smith potentially be on the hot seat? Turns out that conversation topic doesn't go over well with anyone. A lot of people were not too happy about that, saying that. So it turns out, I thought it was a very relevant, good conversation. I thought I filled it with good information, saying that if they did want to fire him after this year, let's say they do go 4-8, for example, it would be to the tune of a like $32-ish million buyout, the second richest of all time in college football. Still pales in comparison to number one of Jimbo Fisher, but it would be a lot of money, and it would definitely be the most in Big Ten history by a significant margin. To Scott Frost, I believe, right now holds that title, but it would be a lot of money here. But hey, Jay Batt seems like a nice guy, cordial guy, comes off great in the media. He's also like no nonsense. Like, he is a business sense. He probably knows that, okay, Michigan State, we need to get things on track right now before this bus for the rest of college football takes off soaring in this new era here, if it's not already too late. So I don't know how impatient he's going to be, but I don't think it's out of the question to say, hey, if you go 4-8, you're recruiting still outside the top 30, you're not making much traction in the following recruiting class right now either. I think it would be naive to at least not ask the question or wonder, is it a $32 million check about to be scratched right now, and we're going to go fishing and really flex how much money MSU does have? It's possible. So I know it's not a definitive answer, a yes or a no. I'm just saying, like, it's not 0. I don't think it's 10. I think it's like a 25% chance if MSU falls on its face, he might not get another shot at this. So we'll see. We'll see. Why? Is Kirk Ferentz going to be open? Is he going to be available? Is his phone going to be on for Jay Batt when he calls after this?
Yeah.
Perfect. Phil Parker too.
Come deal. Get him. Excellent. Come and get him. Mike, it's going to cost you. Yeah. No. You can't have Phil. He can't go back home. Absolutely not.
Well, I tried. All right, Trent. Well, hey, you know what? I'm excited to do this all over again. I don't even know how many. Let's see, August, September, October. I'll see you in 4 months, Trent. This is going to be a great time. So
yeah, right.
Until then, best of luck for your season. What are you feeling? The over/under for your win total before we let you go?
Well, it depends on where you're shopping. It was at 6.5 at a couple of the shops. That's definitely an over. 7.5, then we get a little shakier. Okay. I do think they're an 8-4 team. If I had to put it right now, I would take that over, but just barely. And depending on what juice lies, all those different things. Got to look at some of the different prop markets that are out there. What are you guys? 5.5? Is that Michigan State's total?
Last I checked, it is still 5.5 right now. That's right. And I'm feeling pretty solid in the over. I think you can hear the confidence in my voice right now, but it's just as the summer goes along, I start to look harder and harder at that schedule and realize that, oh man, getting win number 6 will be a little tough, but I think Michigan State will take steps forward this upcoming season. So 6 wins. That's right. We get to the Cure Bowl or the Home Helpers Bowl, the Mashed Potato Bowl, whatever it is. We're getting us on bowl game this year, Trent, and we're going to do it defiantly. So 6 or 7 wins. Why not? Guys, Matt Sheehan over here.
Enjoy New York.
Spartans. We will. Oh my God, the Wasabi Pinstripe Bowl. Yeah. Can't miss it. The granddaddy of them all. That's right. Over there, Trent Condon, Locked On Hawkeyes. We both do this 5 days a week right here to Locked On Podcast Network. Now, until then, guys, take care of yourselves. Love you all, even all you Iowa fans. We'll see you.